Yep.
Forward button.
Got it.
How's my makeup look?
Good, good. Your eyeliner and blush and lipstick all look perfect.
Thank you. Good. Man, it has been a long time since I've had any conversations with anybody. It's been a while since I've done any stuff on my channel. So it feels good to be talking. There's so much going on right now. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes everything seems so scripted. It's like I feel like I'm living in this, like, I don't know, like in a movie or something like that. It's just like you go down so many rabbit holes, and eventually I'm just like, oh man, I got to pull back a little bit from all of this stuff going on and go a little bit more inward, because it just gets really wacky.
Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about that last night. I was saying, there's only one of two possibilities. We're either living in base reality and we can only go as far down as flesh and blood and bone, and that's where it ends, or we're living in some type of light wave computer simulation and we can go down all the way to the electron and the photon, the light wave particle. But most of us don't have an electron microscope, and I've never seen a picture of an electron, and I've never seen a picture of real space. So I don't know what the truth is. We might be trapped in a live terrarium that we can't get out of, and we're in base reality, or I don't know. I don't know the truth. I mean, I've called NASA a couple times and put up the videos about how they said we can't get off the Earth. We can't get high enough to take a picture of the entire Earth or a video of it. So I don't know what to believe anymore, really. The way things are going, like you said, it seems like we're in some kind of a scripted thing. It is weird, man. The more things I see happening out there, I just got to wonder if they're just trying to keep us all from getting bored, and just keeping things for us to do, so we don't figure out that we're trapped in some type of a finite space that we're not allowed to leave. And we might be in a computer, we might not. I don't know the truth about anything, I'm starting to realize, except that I'm not a property of the police. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, same here, man. It's weird. It's almost like it's like no matter how far you search, you're not really ever getting any real answer. And whether you go the mainstream scientific way and you kind of see the way that they're presenting information, and then you go the alternative type information, either way, it's just kind of like there's a lot of missing holes. And you go, why is there so many missing holes? And it leads you to, where the hell are we? Do these experts and these people that claim to know what's going on, do they really know? Or is it just sort of, a dog and pony show, where people are just sort of acting like that they know, but they really don't, or sound really good explaining certain things, but can't really connect the dots in such a way that it actually really makes sense. And it's like, yeah, it to me seems very simulated. And the more that we get into the techno age with computers and everything, the more it seems like we're operating in some kind of simulation, or some type of created architectural construct that is so mathematically based that you would almost have to say that it is simulated, because that's what simulations are. They're very calculated. And I don't think it's a human thing, or maybe some advanced human race from it's been around for a billion years maybe has created this. I have no idea, but it certainly seems like that. And a lot of these things that are happening in the past, there's a lot of events, like world events, that seem to be taking place on very calculated time frames. Like every 19 years there seems to be some kind of big episode that involves a lot of the world. And it just, I know now, for me, it's just like, the more I look at things, I'm just like, it is so scripted, it just blows my mind, especially now that I'm paying attention to it. My awareness is seeing it for that. And the more I see it for that, the more it kind of exposes itself as being a very scripted reality. I don't know. Since I'm getting a message says this meeting will end in 10 minutes. Man, okay. Oh man. So anyways, let's keep going, and I'll keep on sending you links, and we'll just run them together.
Yeah, like you said, it's math based. I was discussing this recently about how infinite growth is programmed into this reality by the pi fraction, 3.14, but it's not really 3.14. It's this never ending fraction that also with the Fibonacci sequence programs infinite growth. Like for instance, this finger, is going to be, it's in segments, like the base part closest to my knuckle, the base of my hand is going to be a certain length, and then the middle part of my finger and then the tip of my finger are a certain length based on the Fibonacci sequence and pi working together toward growth, segmented growth, where I think we've been programmed to die in 100 years by the mass media telling us we're supposed to eat 3 times a day. We're supposed to eat all kinds of garbage, dead cooked animal. And really, I think we can live probably 1,000 years. And who knows what our DNA is programmed for us to morph into as we grow according to pi and the Fibonacci sequence. We might start out as these human looking beings, and in 800 or 900 years, we might wind up morphing and growing into gray alien looking beings that aren't even from outer space, because we can't get to outer space, but really they're from right here on Earth, advanced humans that can live to be 1,000 years old, or maybe 2 or 3 or 5,000 years old. Maybe once we're in this life, if we do things right, we can actually live as long as we want. That's what the Emerald Tablets of Thoth say. And he says you have to release yourself from food and things that keep you attached to this dense physical, and then we can become all-powerful light beings if we allow ourselves to be. But we're being programmed by the mass media and the Department of Agriculture, the US of A Corporation, just local governments, all telling us we're supposed to do different things that really are designed to kill us. Even when you watch like a movie or a police show, they always show the cops handling their difficulties by going to a bar and drinking alcohol, and I know that's poison. Everything and coffee, caffeine increases our metabolism and our heart rate, and fat quickens our aging, and sugar, just all these different things and high fructose corn syrup, just aspartame, just all these drugs that are being put in everything that we consume, that we're programmed to consume, are killing us quickly, changing our DNA. It's really weird. I think it may be the master races, or who they think they're the Illuminati bloodlines, just want to kill us, use us as batteries for 100 years, and then kill us off, and then collect on our birth bonds, our birth certificate bonds. I don't know. That's what it seems like.
It's crazy. And even what you're saying right there too is it's got me even thinking about, we're talking about living in a simulation, some kind of holographic reality, but that brings it to, what about the people that are experiencing this reality? And when I look at human beings are so programmable. It's mind-blowing. And right down to DNA. I mean, they got that CRISPR technology now, where they can go in and edit genes, chromosomes and stuff, to get any desired result that they want. And it leads me to think, if we're that programmable, what does that make us? Are we artificial intelligence? Are we a created species of being that basically is, how do you put it, artificial intelligence? We've been created maybe by something that's not natural. We do know, or there's a lot of people coming out now talking about human origins, people just suddenly appearing here and then disappearing and then reappearing. There's a lot of people, including myself, I know you too, experiencing these weird movements of time, like traveling from like Orlando to Vero and taking like 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. And it's like, man, that should have taken me, an hour and a half. My dad has these really weird experiences that he's had with these weird kind of time edits type things. So it's very interesting. And sometimes I think, well, maybe it's just because computers and technology are advancing, the mind's going that direction, and that is what's manipulating my thinking into this. But I feel like the more we move on, the more we, at least I internally reflect on this and going, man, this is nuts. It's almost like we are an artificially created intelligence that has the ability to create things in the likeness of its own image. And if you look up the etymology of artificial intelligence, it blew my mind. I was just like, that's what I was trying to look for in here. I started writing a whole thing on artificial intelligence and basically, are we artificial intelligence, starting with the actual etymology of what it is. And that artificial basically it's the art of creating. It's creating things in the image of itself. And the very last word was maker. And I was like, this is crazy.
When you get into this, it's called syntaxing, syntaxing. And there's a guy out there, well, he passed away last year, David Wynn Miller. He was a master at syntaxing. And, I think we might have discussed this before. I've talked about it on different shows, is that there are three kinds of language, of any language, three levels. You got slang, formal, and then legal English, the higher form. And the police and the judges and the lawyers, they're using legal English against citizens who are thinking that what they're saying is formal English. And in order to understand how to get from formal English up to legal English, you have to do what's called syntaxing, where you take the words, a word like understand in formal English means, do you know the concepts? Do you have comprehension? Do you know the words I'm using? But in legal English, understand is two separate words. It means to stand under and take responsibility for. And you can syntax words by finding parts of the places in the words where consonants or vowels are back to back, mostly consonants. So if you look at the word understand, you're seeing that it's German origin. It's it's really three separate words, and it's all about taking responsibility for and standing under the, claims or charges that might be being levied against you by these fraternal order of police and their administration centers, where they're hoodwinking common living souls into believing that they're citizens and persons, individuals, residents, domiciled, taxpayers, all these different words that that people are themselves into, because they don't realize that the fraternal order of police are using legal English against them to get the people to entrap themselves into a money perfected racket, a racketeer. The cops, the sheriffs, the lawyers, tow truck companies, bail bondsmen, they're all part of a carefully orchestrated, scripted racket, a perfected racket. And if you try and disagree with their racket, they call you insane. And in fact, I'm dealing with a case right now against the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, the Melbourne Police Department here in Florida, about how they are operating this racket and have stolen my name that I actually put on the record as my own private property. So when I say, listen, you can't use my name, I called a bail bondsman because they had taken my name and written a power of attorney general against it. And I said, hey, this is my name. I put it on the record as my property 3 years ago. And they started getting angry over the phone and yelling at me, calling me insane.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah,
we got less than a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you another link. And that's perfect, because this whole show, that's a great gateway into what we're going to really do this show about, which is the policy enforcers and all the things that are going on in our world and our government, perceived authority, what is authority, and what it actually is when we're looking at it through the lens of. And we'll pick up right where we left off. I thought I had at least 30 minutes, and it seemed like that was shorter than that, but that was a great intro into what this is all about. And I have been looking forward to this conversation, because it's kind of like the I don't know, the elephant in the room. It's It's the one thing that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to authority figures. We're talking about the policy enforcers, and we'll just use that instead of the other word, just in case YouTube decides to, like, you know, I've already had 2 videos yanked from there with the, you know, with the email, you know, but a lot of people, including like my wife, for instance, like I had this long conversation with her about why the policy enforcers, the whole institution, the military industrial complex, all these things going on are just morally wrong. You can't have both. You can't have something that is a little bit moral, but not. It's either one thing or it's the other, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to hearing your explanation, your expertise on the subject matter when it comes to sovereignty, when it comes to the verbiage, the language, how to speak to perceived authority figures. What are the authority figures? Why do they feel that they have the authority to be able to do that? What gives them the right to do that? Or is it always a wrong? To me, it's always a wrong. So let's get into it, man. Let's, so what, you had a couple encounters. I watched the videos. I'm going to put your links, your Rumble links with your encounter with the Brevard County policy enforcers, so people can take a look at it if they haven't seen the videos yet of Ron in action. And I'm glad you got it.
Exactly.
I'm glad you shared that, because it's good to see, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to show the them. They basically broke the law because the entire foundation of their operation is about the honor system. And if you watch that video, you'll see I tell them I'm staying in honor, being completely transparent. And what is honor? Let's define honor. Like when you go into a courtroom, the honorable judge comes in. And why is that judge honorable? What has that judge done to remain in honor and be in the position of honor? Honor is a legal position. You're either in the legal position of honor or not. And we have to look at this from a contracting standpoint. Contracting is the highest form of law. So when you're involved in any kind of interaction with policy enforcers, lawyers, judges, or any other person in your life, you're constantly in the act of contracting, receiving offers, and then deciding whether you're going to stay in that offer or honor position. And honor, let's define it, is to satisfy obligations or an obligation that you have either accepted or conditionally accepted. So people are making you an offer, and it can come right down to a smile on the street by someone who wants to be friends. They look at you and smile. You smile. They've made an offer for friendship. So you can return that offer with an acceptance and smile back. Now you can continue on with that relationship, and you're still in honor with each other. Or like in that video, the policy enforcers are out there doing business. They're operating an administration center, and they're working on the honor system, and they're also using legal English in order to get people, living souls, to admit that they're a driver or an operator or of a vehicle. So those are the words they use, and they operate from the fraternal order of the policy enforcers. They're usually operate in Masonic lodges. And I explained this in one of my videos about the perfected racket being operated by the policy enforcers.
Here, I'm going to bring up that, I'm going to bring up the Masonic logo here.
Yeah, if you look at the fraternal order of police logo.
Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fraternal order of police logo right there. And you'll see.
Hey, Ron, real quick, I got a question. So, because I was bringing this up with my dad too, because we were having this conversation yesterday. He wanted to know, if you're not driving or operating a vehicle, what is it then that you're doing? What's the word that it's called?
Okay, you don't want to ever admit to anything. You can call yourself a traveler. In fact, I was a Freemason when I was in the military, and we call ourselves traveling men. Are you a traveling man? Traveler means you're not driving or operating. And if the cops pull you over and they're like, well, you drove here. No, I didn't drive. Well, how'd you get here? I didn't drive. So you're not operating this vehicle? Nope, I'm not operating the vehicle. You're sitting in the driver's seat. Nope, this isn't a driver's seat and I'm not driving. They're going to continue to try and tell you that you're doing something so that they can put it into the record and record it into the record that you're doing these things that you're really not doing. So you can say you're traveling, but you really just want to say you're not driving or operating. Well, how are you going to get home? I'm not going to drive home. So you're not going to operate this vehicle in order to get home? Nope, I'm not going to operate this vehicle. I'm not operating or driving. If you just pretty much, because they're not going to try, they can't prove that you are. Once you make a statement that you're not driving or operating, that's official. And that's, but you don't want to start saying what you are doing, because now you're making it more difficult on yourself. They only use two words, driver or operator. That's it. If you're not driving or operating. And I looked at, in fact, yesterday, I went on to Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. And my mom was asking me, I went over and visited her, and she's like, well, what's I was looking up the definition of driver and I couldn't find it. I said, exactly. You're probably looking in Webster's dictionary. You need to be looking in Black's Law Dictionary where they're using legal English. And I looked it up, driver. What is a driver in legal English? And that is one employed to operate a machine or a wagon or a donkey or a cart or other mode of transportation. So right there, it says it right in the legal definition of driver is one employed in, moving a machine around that's transporting things or people. And if you're not employed conducting commerce on the roadways as a driver or an operator conducting commerce on the roads, then you're not driving or operating a vehicle for hire. And so most people traveling around in their private cars that they've registered with the state to give them control over it. That's another thing. I got pulled over. The cop got behind me in the parking lot that I was already going to. I was pulling into a print shop because I have a print order for signs that I just had made up that I'm putting on the roads for trying to finance my next movie. I'm looking for investors, which is a different topic. I pulled up right behind me and he's, he just stepped up and started asking me for my license, registration, and proof of insurance. And the car is not registered. So I'm not really even out there using the automobile or the car for any kind of commerce or for, to give the state control over it. When you register something with the state, you're giving them control over it. And you don't want to register your vehicle. I didn't want to register the vehicle, the car. So I told him, I go, look, I'm not driving or operating. And if you want my name, he wanted my name. He's like, well, what's your name? Because that's what they want. They want you to give your name to them, but it's my private property. I registered my name on the record as my private property more than 3 years ago with the county recorder. When you register something on the record with the county recorder and it's recorded for 30 days and it goes unrebutted, then it becomes law. And I made law that my name is my private property and that no one can use it without my permission or paying me. So I told him, I go, look, if you want my name, I said, first of all, I'm not driving and I'm not operating. And if you want my name, it's $500 cash up front. I held out my hand. He said, well, step out of the vehicle. He said, if you don't give me your name or identification, then you're going to get arrested. I was like, really? Why do I need to be compelled to turn over my private property to somebody? And then he said, step out of the car. And I said, I'll step out of the car for $500. Because if anybody wants you to perform something or do something, you don't have to do it for free. They're doing business. They're not out there. There was no injured party, so there's no crime involved. They're just trying to make money for their administration center and for their fraternal order of policy enforcers. And so I said, well, I'll step out of the car for $500. And the cop just opened up the door and pulled me out of the car and arrested me after I stayed in honor. And so these guys violated my rights. Then they kidnapped me, took me to jail, and then they strapped me to a chair and put me in a chokehold and forcibly stole my biometrics, my fingerprints and picture. which is also my private property that I registered on the record as my private property. And so your viewers need to understand that their private property is their private property at any given time. They don't have to give away something for free. They don't have to answer questions for free. When a policy enforcer asks you a question, you can say, I'll answer that question for $100, and you hold out your hand for payment and don't say anything. And now you're still in honor, but they're going to break the law because some of them are just psychos and they just don't care about your rights, and they're going to railroad you through their justice system and steal your money and strong arm you and threaten you. And
it's amazing. They have such a greater upper hand. It's almost like it's tremendous, the amount. It's like they can be coercive, they can lie, they can do all of these things that are completely immoral acts against human people, and you can stand up for yourself, stay in honor like you're saying, and they will run you through the freaking gamut, because they know that it's going to be way more difficult for you to do anything to them, you know.
Oh yeah,
when
I got there, they surrounded me. Like 3 or 4 of these policy enforcers surrounded me at the Brevard County jail on Camp Road up in Cocoa, Florida. And they were like, we need to take all your clothes now. And I said, you can have my clothes for $500. They're my clothes. So 3 of them dragged me into a bathroom, pressed me into a corner, surrounded me and said, look, you're either giving us your clothes or we're taking them. There were no cameras or anything. I said, look, they're my clothes. If you want them, it's $500. And they're like, and they started stepping closer. They started snapping blue gloves on. They started putting their hands on their weapon. And they're like, you need to give us your clothes or we're taking them from you. So sometimes you had to pick your battles. I didn't want to get freaking wrestled to the ground, tased, possibly shot, and then maybe told I'm assaulting an officer. So I had to strip down naked right there, hand over my clothes, and then they put me into what's called a turtle suit, a green little vest that velcros, and then they wouldn't give me any shoes, and they stuck me in a cement cell on metal benches by myself in a 65-degree temperatures, and didn't feed me, and I didn't sleep for like 24 hours. They kept me in there trying to get my name and my biometrics to agree to give them my fingerprints. They will freeze you out and starve you until you turn over your private property to them. So finally, when they saw I wasn't going to break, because I curled up in a ball in my turtle suit and slept a little bit on the bench without getting hypothermia. And I was planning on staying there until they had to let me out after 72 hours. I was planning on not eating or sleeping or being comfortable, and I was going to deal with it. So the following morning, the morning of the 19th of August, 2022, this is all very recent. About 5 of these policy enforcers or jail guards or whatever came and surrounded me in my cell, took me out of it, strapped me to a chair at the chest, stomach, arms, and legs, and then wheeled me into the fingerprint office. And then they then one of them put me in a chokehold, choking me and pulling me up by the throat and the jawbone, really painful pressure point, where I was screaming. And then 2 of them grabbed me by the arms and pried my hands open, and then forcibly stole my fingerprints.
Was this the last time, or what happened in Georgia?
No, this is just now. This is this just happened. And then this is like 7 o'clock in the morning. Then they handed me my property and pushed me out, my cell phone and my wallet and my clothes, and pushed me out the door and said, see ya.
So no fine or anything?
Yeah, they're charging me with resisting without violence, and they want me to appear in court on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, up at the courthouse in Vieira, Florida. So I have filed on the record right now. I've been going to the clerk of the courts and filing all the paperwork on my case that, look, here's the power of attorney general over my name. Here's the video I took of them stealing my name and arresting me unlawfully. And now I'm going to subpoena the records. I got to call the sheriff's, the jail, and get the video of them stealing, you know, choking me and stealing my fingerprints. And, you know, I have a feeling they might dismiss this case, but my next step is to sue the Melbourne Police, Brevard County Sheriff's Office, and Brevard County, and possibly the whole state of Florida, because this is a perfected racket. And I don't know if you've listened to the radio lately, but there's a radio advertisement going on the radio about Sheriff Wayne Ivey and the Fraternal Order of Police. So I'm not just making this up. Oh, there's a Dade County kidnapped child.
Yeah, I got the same thing. So, hey, Ron, so they really, I mean, they really like completely abused you. Okay.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I guess maybe like, I was just wondering, what exactly did you do? Like, you know, did you roll a stop sign? Did you like?
No, my car wasn't registered.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
re-register the license plate, and I didn't want to, because I didn't want my car registered as their property. I wanted to keep it as my property. I don't want the state to have any interest in any of my property, but they want you to register your car. But if I'm not employed to drive or operate a vehicle conducting commerce on the roadways with that car, then it doesn't need to be registered, because it's not doing any business. It's just my private property and I'm traveling around in it. And, you know, most people think that they have to have a driver license to go to the store. 99% of the people out there, or the living souls out there traveling around in their cars, don't really need a driver license. But there's this whole conception that we've been programmed to believe that in order to travel around in your car, you have to have a driver license.
Yeah,
but if you're not getting
exactly.
paid to drive or operate a vehicle, you don't need a driver license.
Yeah, we're all taught that's completely. This is the thing about cracking this egg open, and it is controversial, you know, because kind of what we're basically alluding.
And think about the word controversial. Controversial, opposite wording. You got verse, contra, the two words. When you start looking at what controversial means in legal English, you can break it down and syntax it. So, right, go ahead. It's controversial.
Controversial, right? But I think the reason why it's controversial is because we have been so programmed from the time we are this big to look at authority and to be compliant and obedient with authority, and whoever these perceived authority figures are, that we have to just automatically obey to somebody who seems like, you know, whether it's a teacher or it's
or a doctor.
You know,
listen,
perfect doctors. The medical establishment has gone through. I mean, I have lost all faith in medicine now, and doing research into the medical establishment, going back into the history of how it really began and started. It's a massive cult is really what it is. The pharma, big cult. The Fraternal Order of Policy Enforcers, it's a cult. And I think that when people start to wake up and realize that this is really what the situation is, kind of take that cognitive dissonance, you know, hat off, put it down. It's like, whoa, is this the world I'm really actually living in right now? It's like, but it is. It's like we are living, even religion. It's a cult. You know what I mean? It's getting people to be programmed into a mentality so that they are more easily manipulated and coerced into doing things. And the foundational aspect of it is slavery. They want people to enslave themselves to an idea or a belief so that they're easily controllable, you know? So that is really the point I guess I'd like to try to make, is that through your experience and through all your research that you've done on this, you've got at least one book about all of this right now, is kind of cracking the egg of what really is the policy enforcer. Do they have any authority? I mean, do they have any?
Yeah, we haphazardly and unwittingly give them the authority by agreeing that when the cop walks up to the car and he says, "Do you know how fast you were driving?" "Oh, I don't know. You're right." Now you're admitting you're a driver. And they ask questions. Whoever's asking questions is in control of the court. And when the cop pulls you over, you're in their court. But it starts long before that. And the very simple thing to understand is you're not really that name that's on your birth certificate or driver license or social security card. That's just an all capitalized fiction that the state has created out of the name that your parents, it starts before you're born. Your mom gets pregnant and she goes to see the doctor. And now the doctor, once you're born, is going to call you up and go, we need your new baby's name. So we can, we need the baby's name so we can make the birth certificate. And what's that birth certificate? That's a negotiable financial instrument that has a value, and they steal your child's name at birth, put it on a financial instrument, give it to the state, and the state uses it as a financial instrument worth value, and then you, the living soul, become collateral for that value. So when they're dragging you through the jail and their court system, it's not you that they're after. They're just using you as a collateral to make sure that they're going to be able to access your birth certificate bond to get credit for it and money for it. And you're just a surety or collateral for it. And it even says it on the bail bondsman's paperwork that I have, that they tried to make me fill out. The bail bondsman actually called me and they're like, hey, you need to fill out all this paperwork with your name and everything and bring it into us, because I hadn't done that and I still haven't done it. And I was like, you can't just have my name for free. That's my name. It belongs to me. And they go, you're insane. You're crazy. I go, no, I filed my name as my private property. Once I found out what was going on, and I wrote that book, The Solution, which tells you, okay, look, your name is taken from you at birth and a financial instrument's made out of it. And then you're a surety for it. So what you have to do is you have to get your name back as yours and file it on the record as your property. It's simple. Once you file all of your private property as yours, yeah, there's the book, it becomes yours and on the record. So they want me to appear in court, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to hold up my birth certificate and go, I'm not Ronald Russell Farnham, but here's Ronald Russell Farnham on this birth certificate bond that the state created. But that's not me. I'm a living soul. And I'm not consenting to be the surety for this bond, because I already took this bond and made it my private property and registered with the U.S. Treasury. That's part of the steps of my book. And you'll see I sent you a link for Rononymous, which is a DVD I made about 6 years ago, which Google is trying to suppress. Amazon's trying to suppress the Rononymous DVD, saying that it's not going to be made available anymore because it's called Rononymous, the first step of the revolution. Turn in your birth certificate, which really means secure your birth certificate as your property and give it back to, you can either give it back to the people who made it and said, look, I disenfranchised from the US of A Corporation in Washington, D.C. And a lot of people don't even realize that we live in the United States. And then there's the United States of America, which is a corporation in Washington, the District of Columbia, that's pretending to be a government and have control, but they got no jurisdiction in the United States. But they've invaded the United States militarily via one of their departments of their corporation, their Department of Defense. And Northern Command, there is the command of their Department of Defense that is spying on North America, Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So Washington, D.C. is literally and truthfully invaded the United States militarily and is spying on everyone. And now they're funneling funds down to the local policy enforcers, and they're becoming more and more militant, militarizing themselves so that they can control the citizens even further. But you never want to identify as a person, individual, resident, citizen, domiciled, or taxpayer. That gives the policy enforcers ability to control you, their authority, by you self-identifying as a driver, operator, person, individual, resident, citizen, domiciled. When you go into court, they'll say that, Your Honor, that person over there, I object, I'm not a person. Well, this individual, I object, I'm not an individual. Well, aren't you a resident of Florida? No, I'm not a resident. I'm not domiciled. I'm not a taxpayer. I'm not a citizen. I'm a living soul, and a living soul falls under no jurisdiction, and they don't have jurisdiction over me. The only people I honor or need to honor is my creator, whatever that is, whether he's a computer programmer or God or whatever, and my parents, which really are the ones that created me. My mom and dad created me, and I honor my mom. And that's pretty much the only one I need to honor. My dad's passed away, but I do honor his lessons and things that he taught me. So I keep him in, myself in honor with his philosophies, because he believed a lot of the same stuff I do. And he used to tell me it before I even understood what he was saying. He used to say things that I'm like, wow, now I understand why my dad said that. He knew a lot more than he was telling me at a young age. And now I've figured it all out, and I'm trying to pass on, I am passing on the information to people throughout the world by publishing The Solution, doing videos showing that, listen, You have the right to control your private property, your image, your biometrics, your name, your birth bond. That's all yours to take control over and not let so-called authorities use it without your permission or paying you a fee.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like it makes me think of the protect and serve. You see that in the back of their vehicle, and you
Yeah,
go,
they
it's like,
protect
well,
their identity and they serve a fraternity.
yes,
That's what it means.
that's exactly right. I'm like, it doesn't say to protect and serve the citizens of whatever. And of course it's left out because it's only to protect two things, and it has nothing to do with the citizens. And like I said, it's a little bit of a controversial subject because people kind of feel like, well, if we didn't have these policy enforcers, what would it look like if you've got the maniac driving 130-mile-an-hour down I-95? What would you do about all the gang crap that's going on and the drug running and the human trafficking? So I think that is a big question that, a lot of people think of when they think of having a need to have some type of structure in our society that deals with specifically, people that are just, bad off in life at making
Injured
bad
party.
decisions.
When there's an injured party, yeah, definitely. If I'm driving 100 miles an hour without, if I'm traveling in my car at 100 miles an hour and I cause an accident and I cause harm to people, then I need to take responsibility for the actions when I harm others. But if I'm doing no harm and you're doing no harm and you're just out there, even a DUI, let's say you had a couple drinks at the bar and you're not really drunk, but you would, your breathalyzer would show that you're legally drunk according to them, where they can fine you, and you're traveling home and you haven't caused an accident or anything, and you maybe appear to weave and a cop pulls you over and then gives you a DUI and tells you you're driving under the influence, but there's no injured party, and now they're just trying to get $10,000 out of you for their fraternal order of policy enforcers. It's a racket. They ruin people's lives like that. They when there's no injured party, you're not really don't need to be responsible for anything when you cause no harm. They just trying to get money out of you. They want you to register your vehicle, identify as a driver, pay into their system, and keep their business running.
Right. It's really interesting when you look at it. Before we started recording, we were talking about, what is a right, and a right being basically an action that causes no harm to another living being or their property. And what we see a lot of time over and over again is these policy enforcers are grabbing people in situations that are not causing any harm to any other living being or their property, and then abusing them because of some kind of law, or like with you, for instance. I mean, the fact that you got that abused is crazy, and you did not do anything at all, right?
And
So
contracting is the highest form of law. When you stay in honor in a contract, nobody's supposed to be able, they violated the Uniform Commercial Code. That's why
I mean, absolutely. I mean, but even breaking it down to the most fundamental moral of life, you know what I mean? What is a right and what is a wrong, right? So what it appears that we have a lot of these policy enforcers are totally damaging people's lives that aren't doing any wrong at all. Matter of fact, they're doing completely right, but that they get yanked out of their car, they get yanked out of their house, they get, they start, resisting in a small way, maybe, or maybe they're being compliant, but one way or the other, they're being abused, and that's where it really gets me, is that from the foundational aspect of it, it's just wrong, and then that wrong boils over into these greater and greater abuses, like you had to go through, being strapped to a chair and choked out and all that. I don't know. That's just crazy to think about for me, because I don't want to sit
that's
here.
not the first time that happened. I went to Georgia. They held me for 5 days because I wouldn't give them my name. I didn't sleep or eat for 5 days.
Right. That's actually a good story. If you would, talk about that, because
I was at the Melbourne Mall. I was at the Augusta Mall in Augusta, Georgia, holding a sign in front of the mall, advertising my Rononymous DVD that had come out. And a cop comes up and they're like, "You can't do that, and we need your name." I said, "You can't. I'll leave, but you can't have my name." And they arrested me, saying I was trespassing, and they took me to jail, and they tried to get my name and fingerprints and picture for 5 days. And I kept saying, "I'll give you my biometrics for $2,500. And they kept slamming the door in my face, and they kept coming in and using the same phrase. are you ready to have your picture and fingerprints taken? And I kept saying, yeah, for $2,500. And they kept slamming the door. And I had no shoes. I was in that turtle suit again, no food, in a cold tiled cell with nowhere to lay down. And I did not sleep or eat for 5 straight days. Then they finally dragged me into court. And I said, the judge says, are you Ronald Russell Farnham? I said, I'm here to represent that fiction. And the Superior Court of the state of Georgia is now open and in session. And it is my wish that you remove these chains immediately and set me free. And the judge stood up and fled the courtroom and she said, I demand that he have a psychiatric evaluation and get a public defender. And she left because I had made wishes. And you ever hear the phrase, your wish is my command? Well, when you make wishes in court, those are commands to the judge. And I've studied this, and I put her into a position where she was no longer going to be the honorable judge because I had wished to be set free, and she didn't honor my wishes. So she became dishonorable, fled the courtroom, and they had to assign a new judge to me. And then they also signed a public defender, Nathan Stuckey, out of Georgia. And he told me he was a fascist, and the more people in jail, the better. And that he said, I'm an army of one, and I'm going to lose against this army of hundreds, and there's no way I can win, and I need to just plea. And at the time, my wife at the time, she just wanted me to come home. So I think I pled no contest, and they tried to give me probation on trespassing. And I don't know if it was resisting or whatever, but I didn't cause any harm or do anything. And so everything in that courtroom was hearsay because none of it was transcribed on the record as we were doing it. There was no stenographer. So I walked out of the court, and they asked me for my social security number. And I said, you can't have that. And I called the parole office, and I said, there is no probation because nothing was ever written down in court, and you can't prove it. So there's no probation. And they never called me again. And I left Georgia and I've been back, but I've had no problems.
Man, what you had to go through, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And, and I'm doing it not for me. I'm doing it so I can set a track record and a precedence for every other living soul on earth who's being oppressed like this, so that everyone can realize, all right, this is the truth. Here we go. Here's how we handle these devious monsters who are stealing and operating a racket against everybody. And they're criminals. They are the criminals. So I've gone through this. I'm not doing this just to protect my private property, but to set a precedence for everybody else. That's why I wrote the book, The Solution. That's why when I got, when that cop approached me the other day, I did what I did and recorded it, because it needs to be recorded. It needs to be I need to show the people that we have power. The living souls have power if we understand and know what we're doing, as far as the basic concepts of staying in honor, which is to accept or conditionally accept offers and then satisfy those obligations. Anytime anybody asks you a question, you don't feel like answering it, you can simply say, yeah, I'll answer that question for $100, and hold your hand out for payment and wait. They either got to pay you or walk away, because you're still in honor. Now it's up to them. How bad do they want your stuff from you? That's why I did that to the police. I was staying in honor. And you'll see in the video, the guy kept trying to run around and stick to his script. And I know their script. And I'm teaching it to everybody, to all the listeners out there who want to become living souls. The policy enforcers invented this oxymoron of a word called sovereign citizen. And they invented it to confuse people. If you tell them I'm not driving or operating, I'm just a traveler, a living soul, they'll say, oh, you're a sovereign citizen. And if people don't realize that that's an oxymoron. A sovereign cannot be a citizen, and a citizen can't be sovereign. And that's basically a term they invented to confuse people. So never ever let them call you a sovereign citizen. That's just a joke they're playing on.
Like two contradictory words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Two contradictory words. Contradiction. Opposite words. You know what I mean? So if you start looking at syntaxing words, you can start increasing your word usage up into the legal English realm instead of staying in formal English, and start breaking down words. Start making it a habit to, when you're using words understand where the consonants come together and how to separate the word out within itself and see what it really means. Because word trickery is how they get people to fall into their trap. It's entrapment.
Absolutely. Yeah, for the last few years, one of the things, as far as like research goes and, kind of going down these rabbit holes, etymology has really been, I don't know why, probably the most fascinating to me. And I don't know why, because there's a lot of fascinating things, but when you look at the English language itself, right? And you look at the origins of the English language and you look at all the words that we use that we would normally say on a day-to-day basis, but a lot of these words, when you break them down, they really sometimes mean the opposite of the way that we use them. And it's really interesting to trace words back to where they had come from, because then it gives you the actual meaning of the word. And
Yeah.
it creates this sort of more of a peripheral kind of conceptual idea around what the words mean. I'm trying to explain that a little bit better. Like if you were to pick a word a day, and it was just basically what I was doing. I was picking one word a day that it would pop out, it'd come up and be, I'm going to look at this word and I'm going to study it. I'm going to break it apart, pull it apart, see where it come from. And what it did was it created this sort of more peripheral sphere of this reality that we're living in. I was understanding it in a way that I had never understood it before, because now I was, I guess you'd say, more armored with more knowledge of how the world operates. And a big part of that, I think, is what you're talking about, is these people that operate under the Black's Law Book, these people that are using legal English, understand words in a way that most of us really don't understand it that way. But that's the language that they're using to be oppressive, to keep the master-slave mentality going throughout throughout the populace all over the world. And really, if more and more people, I feel like if more and more people were to understand their language on a deeper level, they would then understand the world they're living in a little bit better, and then understand that even though that they can get in their car and they can travel all these different places, or they can get in the plane and maybe they got to wear a mask or they got to do this or whatever, the concept of that being full slavery, it doesn't really register, because they feel like it's like if you put a horse in a huge field, right? And a huge field, and it doesn't know there's fences around it. Is the horse free? Well, no, there's a fence all around it. Just because you don't see the fence does not mean that it's not there. And we have the fence all around us. And we've seen it in the last 2.5, 3 years, that fence got really, really small. And a lot of people are seeing, wait a second, what's going on here? Because most of us are just sort of living our lives. We're working, we got families, we're, trying to fun and plan fun things to do. But when people start really realizing that the oppressor will never pull his finger up to the point where the sentient beings are going. It's like the oppression just keeps on getting more and more and more and more. And until more and more people start understanding this and standing up for their right as a soul, a living soul, which is sovereign, right? Then we're going to continually find ourselves constrained by these authority figures. And it's not just the policy enforcers. I mean, it's like you said, it's the medical establishment. The WHO has probably more pull in this world than, I don't know. I mean, you got Vanguard, BlackRock, these huge corporations.
The WHO is ruining Hollywood too. Like I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, and I can't even go to Los Angeles now and work on movie and TV shows, which is what I do. I was doing for a living, but
ever since jabbed, right?
Ever since COVID, yeah, it's mandatory vaccine, mandatory masks, and I haven't worn a mask through this whole thing. Not even for, maybe 5 minutes. When I went to Universal Studios to just, hang out with friends and family, they were forcing people. They were saying, I'm going to have to ask you to put your mask over your nose. I'm going to have to ask you to cover your nose. And they never asked me. They just always said, I'm going to have to ask you. And I would just walk away from them and they would have to chase me. And I didn't want to cover my nose up and breathe in my own carbon dioxide. It's totally crazy what they are forcing children to do that. And the state can control your child because the state believes they have control because they have the birth certificate, and the parent doesn't have the birth certificate. They just have a copy of the birth certificate, and that's why the state can come in and take.
All right,
here we go. So
we're back. We'll do we'll do a final round here. And I guess after going through all that and kind of getting a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at here with perceived authority figures, whether it's, policy enforcers or military, any of that. What is like, what can we do, right, to help be more in knowledge of what's going on, but also to help protect ourselves when we're going out there, we're getting pulled over, we're getting, whatever.
Well, there's a few steps that people can do. First is to realize and know that you are not your name. And if you look at your birth certificate, your driver license, and your social security card, you'll see that the name your parents gave you is written on those three documents in all capital letters. And that is a sign that it's a corporation. It's just a corporation and a set of papers that can't do anything on their own without somebody signing on their behalf or autographing things on their behalf. So that name, you have to take that name and create a power of attorney general over that name. And what you do is you create a document like a trust. You create multiple pages trust listing all of your property, and you can list your name, that name, your images, your biometrics, your fingerprints, your physical vessel, your living soul vessel, your cars, any intellectual property, your computers, whatever property you want to control and make yours. Remember, Rockefeller, I think it was, said, own nothing, control everything. So you want to control it. How do you control it? You list it on a trust document, a security agreement, and then you create a power of attorney general over that security agreement, and you register that document with the county recorder. You dock it. You take the document and you dock it, and it becomes law. Once you send it to the clerk of the courts, they'll file it on the record, the public record, as law. And after 30 days, it becomes law. If no one goes in there and says, no, you can't use that name, that's my name, or that's my car, or something like that. If it goes unrebutted, your filing goes unrebutted, then after 30 days, it becomes law. And so, like, I filed my name as my property 3 years ago with the county recorder. So if I make this appearance in court, unless they drop the charges by September 13, 2022, I'm going to walk in there, and I already went to the county recorder, the clerk of the courts, on this case, and filed all of these previous documents showing and proving that, wait a second, this is my property. You guys can't use it. Here it is. I filed it as my court case, showing that if I have to appear, this magistrate acting as a judge is going to look at my file and go, oh, okay, here's all the evidence showing that this actually is his property. And the Melbourne Police and Brevard County Sheriff's Office are using it without his permission. And I have the video showing, hey, I conditionally accepted all of your offers, for my fee. We're doing business. You guys are doing business. I'm doing business. So you living souls out there have to understand, you have to write down a list of all your property into a document, and then file that property as your property on the record. Now, nobody can use it without your permission. So if a policy enforcer pulls you over and says, you know how fast you were driving, you tell them, oh, I'm sorry, you must be mistaken, I'm not driving. Well, we need your name. Oh, yep, I registered my name as my private property on the record, and if you want it, I do charge a fee, and I'll just take $500 cash up front right now for it. So go to the ATM and get your cash, and I'll wait here, policy enforcer. Now, they're either going to understand that honor, or they're going to break the law like they did with me on August 18, 2022, when they pulled me out of my car, as I stayed in honor, and hauled me off to jail. So people have to understand, you got to protect yourself. And the first thing is registering your property. And then you can take your birth certificate. You can even register your birth certificate bond as your property in that document. And then the next step after that is to send your birth certificate, a copy of it, down to the U.S. Treasury in Puerto Rico, and point the credit of your birth bond toward you and your account. And you set up an account with the Treasury through a registered mail number, which is private mail. You set up a private account with the U.S. Treasury by sending a copy of your birth certificate to the Treasury saying, this is my credit. You guys start using it for me now, not the US of A Corporation, not the state of Florida or wherever, but me. And then you can use a 1040 voucher to discharge debt against now what is your birth bond credit. And so that's how you protect yourself. That's what you have to do. And I put all those steps in my book, The Solution, an instruction manual for sovereignty and freedom. And if anyone gets the book, you can get it on Kindle or paperback, then just email me. My email address is on there, and then I will send you all of the documents that you need to fill out and the instructions on how to do it so that it's simple and you can get the process done like that and protect yourself. And if everybody across the United States and the world does that, then it'll end this tyranny that we're under by these policy enforcers and even the military. And most military members don't realize that that they're working for the Department of Defense of a corporation in Washington, D.C., pretending to be a government and funding their programs by stealing Federal Reserve notes in the form of federal taxes, which we don't really have to pay. So we're getting railroaded by several different entities pretending they have jurisdiction and authority over us.
How many people that you think that work in any type of, like, say, military or the policy enforcer units all over the place? How many people do you think working in those institutions realize the racket that they're involved with?
I would say probably at least 95% of all the policy enforcers know it. And then those that some stay there and finish it out and just do it because that's what they're going to do. They join a fraternity. They take an oath. I think the military members, however, most of them, I worked for the Department of Defense for 15 years. I held a top secret clearance. I spent 8 years active duty Army intelligence and Korean linguist as a counterterrorism analyst, a signals intelligence analyst. And then for 7 years, I was a contractor doing the same thing with a top secret clearance. I was training special forces analysts how to exploit actionable intelligence via the Pathfinder software platform. I trained them on that. I was a data manager at Headquarters Special Operations Command, managing intelligence from our Middle East and worldwide operations, because Special Operations does worldwide operations. And then I suddenly realized after research, because I was always looking for the truth, I figured out, oh my gosh, I'm a terrorist and a traitor to every living soul on earth just because I'm working for the US of A corporation's DOD. So I resigned and I started writing books and making movies about the truth of what we're living in. And so I would say most military members don't realize what they're actually serving. The higher ups do, I'd say, the generals, the secretaries, of defense, those guys working for the White House cabinet and stuff like that. But for the most part, I would say most military members have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I'd probably think about the same thing on both ends of those. And I didn't even know that there was a fraternal order of police until you had told me that the other day. So of course I had to look it up, and I was like, man, this is really interesting. I don't think
and it's real. Listen to the radio. There's a commercial on the radio
yeah.
right now about Wayne Ivey and the Fraternal Order of Police. So I'm not just making these things up.
I looked that up, and that's true. Yeah, anybody can look that up, and I think that would come to a little bit of a surprise to people too. There's kind of a mix, take on the ideas that people have with the Masonic Lodge and Masonry, right? Because I don't look at Masonry as being a bad thing at all. I think it's been completely hijacked and turned into a bad thing by, it's almost like if something has the ability to grow into a very negative thing, it's like at will. And it's like, unfortunately, I think that's what was the idea with the kind of hermetic principles, was that originally the occulted knowledge, it was occulted because if that information got out, that knowledge got out, it could be used or wielded for negative things, right? So you had to kind of go through a process, an initiation, in order to learn this knowledge, and then to also protect it from getting out there. Now we look at occulted knowledge. I think a lot of people look at the occult, just means hidden, right? As being negative, or they're hiding things from us, because obviously a lot of things are being hidden from us. But from my perspective is that originally that wasn't really the idea. It was supposed to be meant for wielding good moral justice and understanding the foundation of nature, the natural reality that we live in, and how to dig in deeper to figure ourselves inside of this reality and how to really make the most out of it. And unfortunately, the whole Masonic thing now is really turned into this. It just seems very negative, and you see these
Well, in
fraternal
the
orders and all these people that are involved with the Masonic stuff that are violating every natural law. They're violating morals and ethics, and then they're wrapping it in a bag as if they're doing it there to protect and keep you safe. And that, to me, it's anything but the truth.
In the late 1700s, the modern day Freemasons were formed by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, Germany, and working with the Bauer family, which became the Red Shields, which became the Rothschilds, which became the Rothschilds.
Yeah.
And they have been working together since then to achieve Albert Pike's scenario. That Albert Pike wrote that letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, the founder of the modern day La Cosa Nostra or Mafia, about how they were going to eventually, during this Third World War that we're in, the war between Islam and Christianity, is going to destroy Christianity and Islam, and they're going to come up with the Luciferian doctrine is going to come out. That's going to say that we're in some type of a light wave computer simulation. And it seems like that's where we're headed. Even Elon Musk has come out and said there's a 1 in billions chance that we're living in base reality. So, but that might not be true at all. We might be in base reality, but we're headed in that direction. And if you read Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, it totally explains the 3 world wars scenario and how now we're in the middle of the Third World War, which is going to spread hopelessness throughout all of Earth until we have nowhere to set our idolatry except upon the divine or the beautiful doctrine of Lucifer, whatever that's going to be. And I believe that the Lucifer means the light bearer. And so I think it's going to come out that we are living in some type of an enclosed terrarium type of a system within a computer simulation. So I think that's where it's headed, honestly. And that's and if you look at it, everything going on from that perspective, then what's going on makes sense according to their agenda. And their agenda is ruthless, because I don't know if you've heard about the Georgia Guidestones, but they were just knocked down by somebody, some kind of an act. And
I drove right by there right after, like right after it happened. We drove right by there, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go take a look at the Georgia Guidestones." But the thing is, they had all the roads blocked off and everything. Like, you couldn't get in there. So,
and you can find images of the Georgia Guidestones online that shows the #1 rule now of the New World Order is to maintain a worldwide population under 500 million. And that means they're trying to kill 6.5 billion people right now, especially with what's been going on for the past couple of years now and what they're trying to do. And I write about it. I put that in my movie, Hollywood and Vine, that you can watch on Amazon Prime. I specifically even say that, the Georgia Guidestones, 6.5 billion people are going to die at the hands of the Illuminati unless we stop them from these terrorist activities that they're doing. And you can watch that movie on Amazon Prime called Hollywood and Vine. I even published it as a book to try and, to help people wake up. My whole goal since I resigned from the Department of Defense is to publish things that help people wake up and realize that they can take control over their lives. Own nothing, control everything. You don't need to own your home. You just need to control your property. You don't need to own your car. You need to be able to control it. You don't need to own your name. You need to control it. And you do all that by filing it as your property on the record. Then you have control.
Yeah, that's definitely and
understand how to stay in honor. Satisfying obligations that you accept or conditionally accept keeps you in honor. And you can conditionally accept all offers for money. And that's the highest form of contracting, of law, is contracting. The highest form of law is contracting. Someone makes you an offer, you can make a counter offer. And a contract is only fair when it's equitable to both sides, equally equitable to both sides. If the policy enforcers want to take your name for free and use it against you in their court, that's not fair. That's not equitable. You want to take my name $500. That way it's going to cover my court costs. It's going to cover a fine or whatever. I wasn't being unreasonable. I wasn't saying give me $10 million, but now I'm suing them for $6 million on the record. And I filed that paperwork last week with the county recorder because they went ahead and stole my name, stole my biometrics, and they're trying to use them against me without my permission. And even the bail bondsman is trying to do that. And when I told them, you can't have my name, it's my property, I'm not giving it to you, they told me I was insane. So today I'm going over to a mental health clinic and I'm going to get a psychiatric evaluation done that shows on the record and proves that I'm clearly in my right mind and sane.
Are you doing that on your own?
Yeah, I'm doing it on my own.
You know, so with the things you're talking about, it's really, even just sitting here, it's hard to wrap my mind around it. I can see what you're saying, and I'm like, wow, I can see that concept and the ideology behind it. But it's so funny because we are so hammered into us what our reality is as far as what the law is and all these different things, that it's like you have to completely drop everything that you've ever learned and then relearn what it actually is. Like, it's like we have to really understand that we are living in a fiction, because this is really what it's like. We're living in a fiction, and all of this stuff is just fictional shit. And we are made to believe that the fiction is real. And I don't just mean the nature of reality. I'm talking about government policies, statutes, laws, all these things. It's all fiction. It's all made up, because at the foundation of life, tell me, base reality is, it's a moral reality. There's a right and there's a wrong, and everything sort of grows from that. I feel like we've come so far where we've kind of meshed, right and wrong together, where people are living in this sort of relative reality. They call it that moral relativism, where it's like you can just make up anything you want to fit whatever you want to say is right or wrong at the time, and then change it at some other point to better suit your need. Or we're just living in this sort of fantasy land of fiction. But really what it comes down to is that you just have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing creating harm to another person, or their property? And if it's not, then you are completely in the right. And if anybody tries to come along and say that what you're doing is wrong while you're in the right, they're in the wrong. And it's as simple as that. And we see it time and time again, look at the last 2 years. And they're trying to interfere
with your contracting with other people. That's the thing, contracting being the highest form of law. If you and I have an agreement and I'm selling you, I don't know, let's just an ounce of cannabis. And then the cops suddenly appear, policy enforcers suddenly appear out of the woods, and they're like, you're under arrest for selling marijuana. I have a private contract with you. I'm doing no harm to you. I'm selling you cannabis, not marijuana. And we have a private agreement with each other. They have no right to involve themselves in my business and your business with me. It's they're interfering with the Uniform Commercial Code by pretending they have authority over contracts that they think that they're supposed to be in control of, and they don't. They're just violating your right to contract privately. Yeah,
it's kind of funny, too. Also, when you kind of break outside of the fiction, and this sounds probably kind of bad, but I kind of feel like that when you see the policy enforcers around, they got the blue costume, and they've got all the guns and the tasers and all this stuff. And it's funny, it's because it's like, that is just a perception. They come up behind you, the red and blue blinking lights, that's psychologically proven to create anxiety. That's why it's red and it's blue. There's no other colors. Those two colors have been proven to cause anxiety, because they need to fear. They need to put as much fear as they can as they're coming behind you and they're walking up, and they come over. Excuse me, sir, you know why I pulled you? So it's like, so you're afraid, and that you're going to be very obedient and compliant.
And they ask that question. Do you know why I pulled you over?
Yeah.
And now they're in control, and then you start answering, and then they'll start.
At the end of the day, they're the same as you. They're all, it's like, do I just put on a big blue costume and I, put all the guns and tasers, and does that suddenly magically make me, I go to school for 6 months and I, take a couple of tests, and then, all of a sudden I'm like, and now I'm walking around, I get authority over everybody. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's why it's that is fictitious to me, or you have the doctor with the white robe on, and it's like, oh, it's official. The white robe makes this, that's a fiction. You know what I mean? It's all a setup. It's all props. It's like everyone's
play. They're putting on a play.
It's right. It's like a big script, and it's like everyone's fitting their little role inside of this play, to make us believe that something is going on here. And it's highly thought out play. There's all these little things involved, and everyone jumps into their character and they're playing it. I'm the doctor, I'm the engineer, I'm the, I'm the bridge inspector, you know what I mean? Put on my old cap and I'm gonna go out there, but at the end of the day, it's like we're living in a sort of fictional land that we're all self-perpetuating on each other. It's really bizarre. It really is.
Yeah, I know. It's terrorism.
It is. It's terrorism on the soul. Terrorism on the soul. Meanwhile, our higher self, our real living soul, it's like trying to get everyone, every individual to wake up and be like, hey, this is what you are. You're an eternal, infinite being. Of science, there's a lot of crappy science out there, but if I do believe that energy is neither created nor destroyed, and if that is the case, which I do believe, that would mean we are energy. We cannot say that we're not energy. We know that we are. That means that we're eternal. So this is another thing I thought of the other day. If you can put yourself in the complete mindset, the complete belief that you're an eternal living soul or spirit, whatever you want to call consciousness. If you were to take that belief, that being that carries that full belief, okay, there would be no fear in this individual. There would be no entity outside of this individual that would create any fear inside of you. For you to,
I'm at that point now. I don't have any fear about anything.
That's amazing. And that's what, if more people felt like that, this would again change the whole paradigm of the way things operate, because everyone is convinced, and not everyone, but a lot of people are convinced that this material realm is all that there is, because they can't remember anything else. And I will say this, I have memories. I have memories of lifetimes that is not of this lifetime. I've had them in dreams, I've had them in visions and meditations and all this. So, was it another lifetime? I don't believe in linear reality. Really, I don't. I think there's a lot of different timelines kind of sandwiched on each other. If we're going to kind of get deeper into that. Am I just tapping into another consciousness somewhere? I don't know. But I do know that we are eternal consciousness, and that our five senses are only giving us a little tiny smidge of what reality really is. And we can, I feel like, almost like on your phone, you can zoom in on things. If you can take all of your five senses and wrap them all up, you can take those and expand them out. And when you do that, reality comes a little bit different. It comes like more peripheral, where it's hard to explain. But meditations are great for this, where you can expand an idea and you can almost see beyond the idea, and there becomes more to just the everyday. I'm looking in front of a camera, I can hear kids downstairs, the hat on my head, all this stuff. We have the ability to expand our consciousness by simply going into it and opening it up and knowing that. And I guess my point with that is that we are eternal living souls, and there is not really any real reason to have fear, especially over perceived authority figures that are trying to coerce us, into being afraid and convincing us that we have something to be afraid of, when in fact that we don't. So anyways, that was my point. I think I was going somewhere, but
that is the point. And it takes doing certain things also to lose that fear. I've put myself in a position where I've done the right things, filed the right paperwork, put myself into a position where I know I'm right and justified, and I shouldn't have to fear anything. And I don't. I've been through that arrest process enough times now, through standing up for myself, that there's only a certain amount of stuff they can do. And the worst thing that can happen is they murder me. And fine, I'll be a martyr for this cause, and that's why I'm doing interviews like this, getting all this down on the record, so that you can't say that I was suicidal or had negative thoughts about hurting myself or something like that. That I'm fully prepared and preparing to live to be 1,000 years old with all these different goals. I want to write 100 books, make 100 movies, and help every living soul become sovereign and free from tyranny and terrorists, and spread the truth. And I'm going to keep doing this as long as I'm alive, and until there's no reason to do it until everyone's gotten freed. So that's my purpose. That's my goal. And that's what I'm going to keep working at every single day.
Commend you for that, man. I really respect you a ton. And really thanks for all the work that you're doing. Watching those videos and see you go through that it's like, wow. It's like, you know, not a lot of people have the courage to be able to do that. It's like, I was talking to my dad about it, and he's just like, you know, you should just give him his license and blah, blah, blah. And the cop will just leave him alone. I'm like, that's not the point. That you're missing the whole point of the whole thing. But what he's doing to sacrifice for truth and for real justice is a really huge thing. And I really, again, commend you for that, man.
Thanks. I appreciate
awesome.
it. Yeah.
So I guess we can wrap it up here. But that was a great talk. I really appreciate you carving out some time to talk with me. I've been looking forward to having a chat with you, and we should do another one. Maybe on the next one, we can get a little bit more into the imagination realm, and we can, you know, we have talked about this in the past about kind of exploring the nature of reality, our own theories and thoughts as to what this is. Is it a globe? Is it a sphere? You know, is it a flat? Is it a more of a firmament kind of thing? Are we in a holographic reality? Are we not? These are all really good, really good questions and fun things to talk about. And I've got my theories, and I've got a lot of things written out about this kind of stuff. And I know you do too. So maybe next time we can get together and have a little fun.
I'd like to get to the bottom of it. Yep. I'd like to figure out what's real.
Yep. Discovering the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna hit the stop record button. I'll stay on here for just a minute though. I'm just gonna hit stop record. And
right. Thanks for everything, Logan.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Let me see here. Where's it? I can't. Oh.